at tract 19 at the Devil's Backbone project in Howell County, Missouri. This is about 10 miles northwest of West Plains, Missouri, which is one of the larger cities in southern or south central Missouri. Springfield would be the largest city, and that's hour and a half west of the property, roughly. But yeah, West Plains is just about 10 miles to the southeast. Um, a lot of these tracks, there's only 32 tracks here. It's a small private rural development. A lot of them do have direct frontage on the National Forest. Track 19 is going to be one of those. The west side, the majority of the west side borders the gravel easement road with the National Forest right there. And actually, the east side is within just a few feet of the National Forest as well. So you've got a really, really nice tract. Um, as we look at the map here, hopefully you can see the cursor. If you look toward the right, the start of that purple line is going to represent the easement road and the easement road system at the Devil's Backbone project. Off of County Road 4870, you would take that to the west. Go about looks like about 3/4 of a mile, and you've got track 19 on the right, on the north side of the main easement road. So actually, track 19 borders the easement road along its entire south side and along its west side as well. So let's zoom in and we'll have a look at that. The shaded areas, by the way, that you see are the Mark Twain National Forest. So not only do you have your own private acreage here, but you can go directly into that national forest from your property for hunting and hiking, and they've got campsites and miles of roads and trails and rivers and creeks for swimming and fishing. I mean, it's just awesome, and it is right there. I mean, you can see that. Track 19 right here, and then the national forest right there. I mean, you've got the road and the national forest. And then over here, like we mentioned earlier, on the toward the southeast side, I mean, you're looking at a 10-second walk down the easement road, and you're in the national forest that way as well. So pretty special property, heavily wooded. Does have an open meadow toward the west side. I want to mention right away that this trail that you see that kind of extends northeasterly from the property, that is just an old trail, probably used by the family that owned this larger tract when it was all one big piece. I'm sure they use their trail system for deer hunting to get to various parts of the property. That trail is not an easement. No one is going to be coming from the north down onto your property. The only access easements are the purple lines that you see on this map. So that's the road system. All these other trails, and you see that all the time on these larger tracts. You'll have trails everywhere. It doesn't mean that they're access easements. So if you wanted to, for instance, fence this northern part of your property for whatever reason, if you just didn't like that trail there, I mean, you could do that. This aerial base map is several years old. The last few times we've been out there, I mean, some of these trails you couldn't even see because they'd grown up so much. But it looks like when this aerial map was taken or developed or whatever, that the trail system had been used by the guys who were hunting this. But again, the only easements are these purple lines, so the easement road along the west and along the south. So certainly you can build, certainly you can camp, certainly you can hunt. You do have setbacks from the easement road for building and parking and all that good stuff. So you do want to keep that in mind on this property. It is 4.82 acres. It's surveyed with the corners marked. But as far as when you go to build or set up your campsite, you do have a setback distance off of all the off of all the easement roads. So on this tract, that's going to mean that a sizable portion of this meadow would not be usable for building or parking. You could certainly have your driveway going over the meadow, but you've got to get whatever the distance is. I believe 100 feet off the easement road to actually build your structure or have your RV or whatnot. So that is going to somewhat limit some of what you can do on this property. And I think we have whatever you call it. What am I trying to say? A layover. We have a layer. We have a layer that we can turn on in a second, where we've kind of mapped out the rough setbacks. You can see that. I mean, you still do certainly have usable area, but just keep that in mind that when you get to this, when you get out here, you can't just pull onto the meadow and plan to build right there, you do have the setback. That's for everybody's kind of privacy and to keep things looking nice and neat. So that applies to all tracts. But we wanted to mention it specifically on tracts like 19 and 20. But why don't we go ahead and we'll put that overlay on, see if that works. Here we go. And this is approximate. Whoops. I think it'll show up in a minute. It's kind of, there we go. Well, it did. There we go. Okay, it's coming and going. Okay, stay. No, you gotta stay, buddy. Let's try this. What if we click on that? Okay. So the orange shaded area is the approximate setback, and this is not professionally mapped out. We just kind of measured it as best we could on the map. So you can see that there is still usable area in that meadow. So certainly you can have your driveway or whatnot going over that, but when you build your structure or actually set up your RV or your camper or your deer camp or whatever, you do want to be aware of that setback, because I mean you don't want to have to get started and then move your stuff. So just be aware of that. But if we measure that, and again, this is really just approximate, but looks like about roughly 70 feet by, and we're just talking about the meadow here, just because that's already convenient and open, it's easy to measure. Roughly 70 by 100 feet of meadow, of existing meadow that's beyond the setback. So there you go. If you want a 7,000 square foot home, you can still do so without having to mess with too much timber. But in all honesty, I mean, there's a lot of area out here on this property, just because of the way it lays. There's a lot of usable ground. I mean, you could have, we joke sometimes because, properties that may have much less buildable area than this, and people say, well, I want a pretty big house. One of the girls in the office looked, and when she checked, the largest house in the U.S. Used to be Bill Gates' pad, but I don't think it is anymore. But it was like 30,000 square feet, which is about 3/4 of an acre. So on most of the tracts we have, you could build the world's largest house, still have room for a gigantic pole barn and an in-ground pool and everything else. And this one's no exception. So obviously the setback does somewhat limit your space, but that being said, there's a lot of space left to do your thing out here. So we'll shut those off. We just wanted to give everybody an idea about that. So yeah, beautiful tract. We did mention it's surveyed. You've got the National Forest right here. So I mean, when you're on this west easement road, essentially you stick your left hand out, and your left hand's in the National Forest. You stick your right hand out, your right hand's on your own private property. So I mean, it's great. I mean, we look all the time for National Forest properties. It's rare that we're able to find anything even in the area by the National Forest or down the road from the National Forest. I don't know why that's so big. There we go. But to find something, with frontage right there is amazing. I know we don't like to get these intros too long, but as far as if you're a hunter, if you're into recreation, if you're a hunter, you get out here, and obviously you'll probably set up some kind of, deer attractant on your own property, whether it's a salt lick or a small food plot or whatnot, and you'll get to know your property really well. But when we talk to hunters that hunt the National Forest a lot, they'll have their own private tract if they can. Otherwise, there are a lot of guys that come in from out of state and just camp in the National Forest and hunt for a few weeks a year. But if you happen to be one of those lucky guys that owns a property by the National Forest, you get to know certain areas of the National Forest so well that you end up, for deer season, for example, on the opener, a lot of guys have scouted out different areas in the National Forest, and they'll be keeping an eye on, half a dozen different areas, and they have a pretty good idea what's going to be the good spot on opening morning. So that's where they'll go within the National Forest rather than their own private tract, because the National Forest just gives you so many options and having your own private tract in the area means essentially you're kind of getting first dibs on the good spots because you're the one who knows what the good spots are, because you're making trips from your private acreage into the forest to see, and it changes from year to year, but some stuff doesn't as far as what the deer are attracted to. So it's just an awesome situation. And if you're just into recreation, I mean, it's just as good. You've got miles and miles of trails that you can use and explore. You've got miles and miles of creeks and rivers for fishing and swimming. You've got hiking, you've got caves, you've got campsites. I mean, the National Forest is incredible. So to be able to bring your family and friends out to your own private acreage and just go spend the day, checking out the National Forest is pretty fantastic. So anyway, kind of got off on a tangent there, but Tract 19, beautiful tract. Look like a good mixture of timber out here, mostly probably hardwood, but you're very likely to see some pine and cedar as well. Yeah, check out the other videos. Certainly if the property's still available and you want to go take a look at it, just give us a call. We'll give you any instructions needed as far as if there's a gate or whatnot. But yeah, beautiful property. We do hope to hear from you. If you have any questions, just let us know.